All right. Thanks once again for watching Blue City Reviews. We appreciate your time. I wanted to talk a little bit about Black Widow, which just came out Friday, which is the latest in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or as some call it, the MCEU, Marvel Cinematic Extended Universe, or is it MECU? Who gives a shit? They're Marvel movies, and I love the majority of them. Spidey is my favorite Marvel character, but I love all those guys. I love the DC stuff too. Nothing more boring to me than the online DC versus Marvel debates, but that's for another video, maybe. I'd probably get bored just doing that video. Black Widow 2021. Now, for perspective, I have seen just about every superhero movie on the big screen since Superman 3, especially once I got my license. I've always been supportive of these films. I don't care what they are. I, Frankenstein, Constantine, Sin City, anything comic book up there on a big screen, I'm there. Preferably opening night, but I always give it the money when I've missed a couple. Obviously, I think I missed Blade 2, which was a bummer. I missed one or two of the Thors, but I always try to be there and support them. And I think that this Marvel arc, which started with Phase 1, and I think like this is Phase 4 now, but whatever. I think what began with the original Iron Man and what sort of closed with Avengers Endgame, I think that stretch of comic book cinema was revolutionary. I mean, really, that was something I never thought I would see in my life. There was a period there, even after the success of something like Tim Burton's Batman, where nothing was really coming out. I mean, you get something once in a while. You'd have a hit like The Crow, and then you'd get some Judge Dredds and some random shit, and you'd get something like Blade, and everybody, oh, yeah, but never really, a comic book movie every goddamn weekend, you know. So when Marvel started pumping these things out and they're like, we've got a plan, I was in on it. And the overwhelming majority of those movies are really good. There are some that don't connect with me. I think they missed a big opportunity with Thor. And Captain America was never my cup of tea, but whatever. They've done so many movies, I'm not going to connect to all of them. I would say, though, Endgame sufficiently ended it for me. They stuck the landing. I thought they're going to have a hard goddamn time topping this, and they have. What was the first theatrical release after that? The second solo Spider-Man movie, which I was so on. And then the WandaVision stuff, which was great for 2 or 3 episodes, and then it devolved into typical standard Marvel action fare and Falcon and Winter Soldier. We didn't finish it. In fact, we canceled our Disney Plus subscription, not out of anger or protest or anything petty like that, just because we own the majority of the movies we'd want to see on that service anyway. And the reason we subscribed was for the new Marvel stuff, which wasn't doing it for us. Short story long here, folks. I was really hoping that this Black Widow would get me excited again. I had seen only one other film this director had done, which was Berlin Syndrome, which I thought was interesting. It's not really my type of thing. It's not a genre I'm nuts about, that type of thriller / horror film. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm willing to watch it, but I thought she did an okay job with the material. I thought it was memorable. I've seen it once and I remember, long stretches of it. So I was interested in this. Did this, get me excited again? Am I just biting at the bit for the next Marvel movie? No, I'm not. Unfortunately, I think this is a very competent action film with solid performances. And, there's nothing here that I would call boring or unnecessary. People are calling this unnecessary. I wouldn't say that. But it isn't like a groundbreaking comic book film. And it certainly isn't a spectacular vehicle for Scarlett Johansson, unfortunately. Now, the plot, this is spoiler free, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the plot, which you probably know from seeing a trailer. Anyway, the plot deals a little bit with Natasha Romanoff's backstory. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. And her relationship with her family. I use heavy quotes there, specifically with her younger sister, who grows up to be Florence Pugh. Great performance by Florence Pugh in this. The sister relationship is the spine of the movie, and if there's any reason to see it aside from some decent action, that would be it. I thought the first 10 or 15 minutes of this movie, the setup with her character as a child, and the predicament that their family is in there, was really interesting, and it really got me leaning forward in my seat to see what was coming next, and that played through into the first act of the film. The opening credits were great. They get the creepy Nirvana song going on there. They had some interesting opening scenes with, some stuff I didn't necessarily see coming, but, oh man, it devolves into typical Marvel stuff very quickly. They want you to take a large portion of this seriously, but then, they're doing parody every other 10 seconds. Like this sort of post-Whedon humor is sort of how I refer to it. Like, why does everybody have to be a goddamn comedian? I don't understand that. They establish a darker, grittier tone right off the bat, and then 45 minutes in, it's like, no, screw all that. We're going to talk about, make a bunch of jokes about Scarlett Johansson's, battle poses and shit, which Deadpool already did, like, what, 5-6 years ago, 2014? They made that joke way back then. Superhero landing, oh, so hard on the knees, so impractical. Yeah, I'm talking about this movie and I'm realizing I didn't really enjoy it. There's no really great villain here. There's no, there is a lead bad guy, but he filmed most of his scenes in one location, I'm assuming over the course of 48 hours or a day, probably surrounded by green screens. The majority of this film seems like a setup for Florence Pugh's character. This does not seem like a Scarlett Johansson vehicle at all. You know what it is? They waited way too long to do this. They waited way too long. It's too late. Especially after stuff like Lucy and Ghost in the Shell, I wouldn't say that this is as good as either of those films. I really wouldn't. If you want to see a movie where Scarlett Johansson is kicking ass and giving some really dramatic moments to you, really stretching herself, there's other stuff to watch. Her big moment here is her smashing her head against the table. And that's the truth. I'm not even making that up. That's her big moment. Smash. Yeah, I didn't dislike this movie, but again, to compare it to, like, I would put it in the middle of the sort of what I love and dislike about Marvel movies, right? It's better than the first two Thors and a couple of the Captain America movies, but it's not on the level of like the first Iron Man or, Guardians of the Galaxy, or, if we're going to step over into DC territory, Wonder Woman, which, let's be honest, if Wonder Woman hadn't been a success, without Patty Jenkins' vision and Zack Snyder, make no fucking mistake, this movie wouldn't exist. This was an afterthought. They were scrambling to keep up with what DC already knew, which is that people want this sort of thing. But this movie isn't that. I wouldn't even put this above Wonder Woman 1984. I'm sorry. I know people are going to disagree. I'd rather watch Wonder Woman 1984 again. Now, I was glad to see this in IMAX. Competent action scenes. Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson are great as the sisters. You got David Harbour in here. He's not, unfunny to watch. He does what he can with some humor that doesn't land. Rachel Weisz, who is one of my favorite actors, again, given very little to do. I don't know. I would say that this is a very average film. It's Yeah, it's forgettable to me, and that's a real bummer because I was stoked. I was pumped. Marvel, yo. I want to be pumped. I want to get that feeling that I got like when I watched that first Iron Man or even that third Thor, which is a great buddy movie, almost like Lethal Weapon for Marvel. Or even like Birds of Prey. Jesus, I loved Birds of Prey. Where is that energy? It doesn't have to be all R-rated and vulgar. I know Disney will never do that, but come on. You got to give us a little something to chew on. You're spinning your wheels here, yo. All right, anyways, Black Widow. This is an average film. I would give it a thumbs up, but with huge reservations. The younger audience in the theater, we saw this in an IMAX show, definitely seemed to be enjoying it more than anyone else. So, you know, it's a movie for teenagers. All right. Thanks once again for watching Blue City Reviews. I'll talk to you soon. Wish I had better news.